ultimate goal of this club is to support St. Louis, the city, the region, the community, and to help strengthen and revitalize downtown where we are now. There's so many things that the club is doing and has done already that shows that that is its ultimate goal. But we also know that a very strong way to be able to achieve that is by being an exceptional club also. And that means winning trophies one day.
Welcome to the first ever live edition of the City Voice podcast. I am joined by a very special guest. It is Diego Gigliani, club president and general manager. Welcome to the live show. How are you doing right now?
Very good to see you, Pete. I must say that I think you call everyone a very special guest. I have listened to a lot of these City Voice podcasts, and it's always a very special guest. But thank you anyways. Nice to be here.
I mean it today, though. I mean it today.
Of course you do.
We're joined by two special guests behind us. The new City shirt, looking absolutely glorious there. But before we get into that, Diego, why are we in the club pavilion today?
Well, today is the day after our new jersey launch or kit launch. Yesterday was the big day. We all look forward to that. I know our fans do also. And we were able to reveal the now second primary kit that we've ever had. Obviously, the first inaugural kit was for the first two seasons. And now we have a brand new kit, as you can see it in the background. We'll be using that for this season and next season. And we've got a lot of fans in the store today lining up to buy it as soon as it's out.
That's exciting. Welcome to everybody in the room. Thank you for joining us. I love that. Little clap. Lovely. Let's talk about what you did in the off season, Diego. Did you get any time, any rest and relaxation in? Did you travel?
Yeah, we did get a little bit of break. I think the holiday season is probably the best period of the year to get some time off. I went back home to Spain with my family. I would say that while it is the best time of the year, it's also the kind of preseason planning time. When you're on the usual FIFA calendar, games continue going on in that time, or it's a short break, but not that much of a transfer window as much as it is here. So we are also busy preparing that. So it's not a fully off time, but at least it's the most available off time possible.
Was it a little bit easier this window because you did so much in the summer?
Absolutely, yeah. We did a lot of work in the mid-season transfer window last year. So when it came to getting ready for 2025, there wasn't that much we knew we needed to do.
So we are in the City Pavilion because there is a new kit launch. Growing up as a child, I used to go down to Finsbury Park with my dad, and then I'd buy the new Arsenal kit and I'd get it on in the train station. I get very excited about new kits. Can you tell us a little bit about this particular new kit and some of the details?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll talk about it, but I know you and your team have been so close to this, Pete. So congratulations to you and all your team. But this is called the Forever City Red kit. As you can see from the design, is quite a minimalist design, but also a very elegant design. And really what it leans into most is our color, the City Red color, which has become very, very identifiably St. Louis City. I think it's the only club in the world that wears this color. And it obviously comes from the St. Louis flag, where red is very predominant, but it innovates on that and tries to reinterpret it in its own modern, fresh way. So it is a much bolder, more unique type of color. It is the last red in the Pantone before it turns pink. We wanted to really lean into that as something that is very ours now that we are 2 seasons in and we're looking into our 3rd season.
One of the details is the sash. We've got the 5 lines representing that team that beat England in 1950. And after this season, I don't want to hear any more as an Englishman about that famous upset. But we're doing a little campaign around it. It's called My Sash Story. And the idea is, though that sash represents those legends, everybody in St. Louis has got a sash story that took them from wherever they landed in soccer, whether it was pickup soccer, whether it was Veda Sport, to where they are right now on the precipice of a new season. I wondered if you had your own sash story that got you into football and landed you here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different steps along that journey, but the very beginning of that journey would have been I was born in Argentina, and they give you your passport. In Argentina, once you have your passport, you are a soccer fan, especially if you're a boy. But I think the entire population really follows the sport. And that was my reality too. When I was young, I remember further sort of amplifying that fandom when I was 10 years old, living in Argentina, 1986, and Argentina won the World Cup with Diego Maradona at that time. So that was definitely the beginning of that really, really strong affiliation with the sport and love for the sport. I was a fan during many, many years, and only a fan. And I got the chance to start working in the sport about 12 years ago, which was really a dream come true. Never would have thought I would have been able to combine something I love with my day-to-day job and all the hours that one puts into it. I'm sure you feel similarly, having been a football fan and an Arsenal fan, and I'm sure an England fan since you were very young. And that first job then took me here to St. Louis about a year and a half ago.
Okay, let's talk about the soccer club. To me, and I work with you, you don't seem to show much stress in and around the office, but there's a lot going on. How are you feeling right now about where the club is heading into this season?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that I don't seem very stressed out, but I would say that internally there is a lot of stress. One manages a lot of different priorities, objectives, things one wants to achieve. So while I may seem calm, there's a lot of stress going on at many times, especially this off season. You know how busy we've been this off season, right? So one thinks that the season's over, and then like the players, one goes off on break and can relax for a couple of months until you come back into the spirit of things. But the reality is very different, especially us on the front office side, and we have a lot of things to do in that off season. So it keeps us very, very busy, and we're happy to finally be just a few days away from that new season starting.
So let's carry on the theme of the front office. It's season 3, the notorious Tricky album. Is the club going to continue to push the fan experience and make Saturday nights, Energizer Park, something to behold? What's planned?
For sure. I mean, I think Energizer Park has become now an experience per se. Everyone talks about not just the experience of watching the football, but the experience of coming to the stadium, arriving early, trying some of the food, the local food partners that we offer, and of course, living the excitement of our supporter section that sings and chants and bangs on the drums and waves flags. And that has become, for sure, another reason to come to Energizer Park. And we look to refresh that every year. No? So, we get into the end of the season, and in that department, like across all of our departments, what we're doing is we are learning from what worked and what didn't work the year before, and planning how can we continue doing things better the year after. So we do have a lot of things planned for improvements and evolutions of our match day experience. We've got some new food partners that will be announced soon. I can't give away any quite yet, but always looking for those local St. Louis food partners that can come in and serve a selection of their food to our fans. We also have a new hype moment at the beginning of the matches. I think we're even going to do something a little bit more special in the first match, being the first official match where we are playing at Energizer Park, our brand new name. And we will have more smoke, more fire, just more entertainment and a great experience.
Yeah, we've got a cheer in the back. Everybody loves the smoke. Everybody loves the smoke. City launched its first ever Super Bowl spot. And people might be thinking, what is City doing in a Super Bowl spot? Could you explain a bit of the rationale and the thinking for why City wanted to show up in a moment like that?
I mean, for the same reason that everyone wants to show up in a moment like that. It is the most watched TV event of the year in the US every year. I mean, I've got hundreds of millions of people watching that game. It's pretty spectacular. And there was an opportunity to have a regional spot focused on the region that we're in. And we worked with the MLS, who was partnering with several clubs, to come up with a creative that worked to tell our story in front of that large of an audience. Because while we are very, very happy of the experience that we've had so far, the amount of support that we have across town, we are still a new team. We've been around for 2 years. This is our 3rd year. And we don't have the level of awareness yet of the Cardinals or the Blues that have been around for 50 plus years. And of course, we do want to get there. So this was an opportunity to just get in front of a lot of those people that maybe haven't even been aware of the fact that we're here, because obviously I'm sure there was a lot of people that watched that and said, yeah, that I know that experience well. I'm there every Saturday. I don't miss a game. But there will be a lot of people that looked at that and said, wow, that looks like a great experience. Let me find out some more. And that was a go for it.
City 2 is pretty crazy to me. Nothing says St. Louis is mad about soccer quite like the attendance at City 2. I'm sure City 2 has got its own ultras out there. People are banging on the table, demanding that they can buy a City 2 kit, which I find amazing. But the attendance has been incredible. Kids and families get to roam the stadium, get to play the drums. There have been rumors, the streets are talking, Diego. They're saying, is City 2 going to move location? Will City dial back on that City 2 experience? Can you confirm or deny those rumors?
We can confirm, Peter, that we are not going anywhere.
Streets are wrong.
We absolutely love playing at Energizer Park. We love the support that we get, and we love the ability to offer something a little bit different than our first team. And that was really what we leaned into last year, and we will double down on next year. We found that with so much demand for the first team, it was hard to get tickets to the game. And the ticket prices were on the higher end. So we were hearing so many people that said, look, I'd love to get down to Energizer Park and connect more with the team. How can I do that? So we said, let's start trying to build something out of City 2 at Energizer Park, but with its own positioning. And we said, let's try to make it a very accessible, family-friendly experience. So obviously, very reasonable pricing. They're sort of $10 to $15 per game. The time of the match is much more family-friendly, kicks off earlier so families can come. And then we just started reinventing the experience, looking at the announcers, and can we include more kids amongst the announcers? The supporter section, and can we include kids in the supporter section? And even the food and beverage, we've tried to offer more kids-friendly food and beverage products and prices. And by doing that, we got some incredible results last year. We saw ourselves break our own record across the league. I think it was 2 or 3 times last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've gotten, I think the best attendance we've had so far has been 12,000 people at a City 2 game. That is breaking our own record before, but when you look across the attendances that next pro teams get across the league, you're seeing some of them with sub 1,000 people. And that is what's driving some of those teams to say, I'm not able to drive the level of attendance that I want. Let's see if we can take it to a nearby city, tap into another market, another audience. Sometimes they're even changing their names to adapt to that city, and they're seeing some success there. So there are teams that are looking into it, but those teams aren't having the success that we have been with City 2 and the amount of amazing response that we get in the city.
And you take your kids down there, don't you? I've seen you in the crowd.
My kids have been to more City 2 games than City First Team games, but for the same reasons, availability of tickets and time of the match, and they get to experience it in a different way because it kind of feels like a neighborhood game. You can get closer to the action, the players sign autographs afterwards. So yeah, it's an amazing experience for families.
I'm going to guess that the hardcore that are in the room looking right now are going to be interested in the next question. The streets were also talking about the Open Cup last season. Me and you personally had a lot of involvement with MLS about what was going on, what the hopes were for this season. Can you talk to me about Open Cup this season? What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're very happy to be competing in Open Cup this year. Last year, as everyone knows, we weren't allowed to compete, which we were frustrated about, and of course our fans were frustrated about. But we're glad the MLS has listened, not just to us, but to other clubs and other fans around the country. And the number of MLS teams in Open Cup this year versus last year is doubling. Last year there were 8 teams. This year there will be 16 teams. So that's great news. I would say that while I'm very excited to be in Open Cup again, it's also a little bit of a double-edged sword here, because the reason why we're in it is because we didn't qualify last year amongst the top 16. No? So would I prefer to have qualified in the top 16 last year? Absolutely. The silver lining of this is we get to compete in Open Cup, and we know this matters to our fans.
Do you think Olof and Lutz are keen to go on a magical cup run for the city?
I mean, we would love to. And this is really an invitation to fans all across the city to take this cup seriously. This is the only other cup that we're competing in this year. Last year, we competed in CONCACAF Champions Cup at the beginning of the year. Then we competed in Leagues Cup in the middle of the year. So there were several opportunities to win silverware. This year, It's MLS and Open Cup. So we do hope that we can have a bit of support, a bit of opportunity to go far. We know our first game is going to be a home game, the round of 32s in May. And we hope that we can get as many of those fans that talked about missing Open Cup and wanting to support Open Cup and that Open Cup mattered. Please come down, support our team, because hopefully we can take that momentum and that fire that burned last year and help it drive us to a great season.
Now, while we've got our lead of special events in the room, I'm going to ask another question. City have hosted a number of non-City games. So we've seen lots of clubs play in our stadium. We've seen Gold Cup. We've seen US Women's National Team. We've seen US Men's National Team. Are we going to continue to try and be a host for those sorts of games? Like, are we an attractive proposition for federations and places outside of St. Louis?
Yeah, definitely. We will continue doing that. We love having U.S. men's and women's national team here. We know how much St. Louis is connected to soccer history, and we know that those U.S. national teams love coming here. They see the support from our fans. They love our facilities. So we will always be looking out for opportunities to bring USA here. But beyond that, we're also looking at other things. Given what I was just describing about not having that many competitions to play in this year as we're not in Leagues Cup, we are looking at, can we try to bring an international club to play here against City?
Do we hear that? Was it like that? That's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting. You know what club that I want to come down, don't you?
Arsenal.
Yes, you know.
Give him a call.
Right,
Give him a call.
I'll tweet him right now. So let's go on to a major topic, probably the biggest talking point of the last 3 months. Olof Mellberg, he's signed. I watched Olof Mellberg score the first goal in the Emirates, and now he's manager of the club that I work at. It's quite spectacular. Premier League legend, somebody that's played for Juventus. I mean, this is a big deal. He's our manager. Talk to me a little bit about the signing and how excited are you about having him around at the club?
Yeah, we're very excited to have him. I mean, I think the fact that he was such an important player adds something to his ability or to his toolkit. But obviously, that's not why we signed him. It's great that he has had that level of experience. He's played in World Cups. He's played in Euros. He's played in Champions League. He's played in some of the best leagues in the world, in the Premier League and La Liga. So that does add some ability to connect with players, understand what's happening, lead a team. But that's not what we were looking for when we said, hey, what are our most important criteria? We were looking for a manager that had comparable first team head coach experience, had been able to produce results above and beyond the team that he was given. And we used a lot of data to help us uncover some hidden gems around the world. So it was a very, very long process. As you know, we started it in June, July, in the middle of last year, and we had the benefit of having time. We had John Hackworth inside the organization, has a ton of experience as a head coach, and he was able to take that team and produce a lot of short-term impact and results. So that gave us time to be able to do a proper search. I would say, we took maybe 4, 5, 6 months, longer than what most head coach searches usually take. But that gave us the benefit to be able to really think strategically around what it is we're looking for, spend time interviewing candidates, finding references around them, getting more information, and we're super happy to have landed with Olof Mellberg.
How many candidates were in the selection pool? Is it and how do you get to those candidates? Is it a Rolodex thing? Is it a data thing? Like, what's the approach to finding a new manager?
Yeah, I mean, our approach, we decided to have a very kind of two-pronged approach. One is, as you described, the Rolodex or the network. And networks do matter in sports, and they do work as well. Not necessarily people that one has had direct experience with, but be able to speak with the right people, get a few names, try to find out more from people that have worked with those people. And that gets you a list of candidates. But of course, that's a pretty short list. What we wanted to do was take advantage of the time that we had to actually look further. And that's where data plays a really important role. We were able to work with a key data provider that we know well, that's able to tap into a database of 25,000 head coaches around the world.
Wow.
Right? So when you've got that level of a talent pool, you can then start combing that data in what you're looking for, because it's not a data that just having access to the data isn't the answer either. You need to know what you are looking for. So we spent some time at the beginning of the process speaking with Lutz, of course with Carolyn, and tried to get an approval of, all right, this is the sort of head coach that we're looking for in terms of experience, in terms of results, and in terms of game model. And then we were able to kind of consult that database for good fit candidates. That gave us a whole bunch of other names. And then you go into a process of trying to uncover more qualitatively, because in the same way that you can't just base your decision on the qualitative, you also can't just base it on the quantitative. Data is data and it will tell you what happened, but you need to try to learn a bit more about the person, the context, the situation. And by doing that, we were able to go from 25,000 to 100-person long list, to a 10, 12-person short list, to a 4 or 5-person finalist list. And then, we were down to 2, and we took the decision, and Melberg is here.
That's very cool. So you've worked at some pretty major clubs. You've been in these processes before. What patterns do you see in really good managers? What are the qualities that you're like? Usually, if you've got these qualities in the mix, you're going to get a good outcome.
I think I've learned that it really depends a lot on the organization that he's coming into, the objectives of that organization, kind of the maturity of the players in the league. I've worked across clubs that are, say, at the pinnacle of world soccer and clubs that are in second divisions of smaller leagues. And what works in one of those teams is not the same thing that works in the other one of those teams. I'll give you another example of something that was very, very unique as a learning. I remember working at a team in Spain, Girona, now, of course, really, really well performing. And we had a head coach in first division and different head coaches in second division. And you'd say it's the same team, similar players, similar league. But we found that when we were in first division, the goal of that team was to avoid getting relegated. Because according to the resources of that team, the natural thing to do would be that team would get relegated. While we were in second division, the goal was to get the team promoted. We needed to win that tournament. And the head coach that you look for that is trying to manage a team to avoid getting relegated is very different from the head coach that works with trying to get a team promoted. So something like that, so subtle, you realize through experience, you learn that you really have to understand your context, your needs really, really carefully to look for a manager that delivers those.
Fans know him as a monster competitor. How does that translate into a coaching philosophy?
We hope to see a monster coach. I do remember the Olof Melberg as a player when we were speaking shortly after he joined. We were talking about his time as a player. And I said, do you have any favorite memories as a player? And of course, he looks at me and he says, are you sure you want to know? I said, yeah, go ahead. And he said, well, actually, in 2002, when I was playing the World Cup with Sweden against Argentina, and everyone thought Argentina was going to win that group. It was the group of death. Everyone thought Argentina was going to win that group and maybe even win the World Cup. And at the end of the day, Sweden got through the first group stage and Argentina didn't. So, you got to be careful when you ask these questions. Sometimes you learn something you don't want to.
Not afraid to say what he's feeling if he's telling you that story. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Did you have any concerns about Olof's lack of MLS experience? Like, that's usually the conversation that goes on. No, he doesn't understand MLS. Like, how does that translate into your role when you're thinking about these things? Yeah,
that was a really critical question that we asked ourselves early on in the process. We did spend some time thinking about that target profile. And that includes answering questions like, does he have to have MLS experience or not? And we approached that question first analytically, and we said, what is the performance that a coach without MLS experience has versus a coach with MLS experience? Is there a noticeable difference? We didn't see a noticeable difference. So then you go into, do you want to limit your talent pool to those head coaches with MLS experience, or do you want to look broader? Or even another question that we ask ourselves is, do you want to be more short-term oriented? And I would say finding someone that knows the league, has coached here, should provide some short-term benefits over the foreign coach. Sorry, not foreign. Coach without MLS experience. But again, we said, no, we don't want to make a decision for the short term. We want to make a decision for the medium term. We're not looking for a head coach for 6 months or for even a year. We're looking for a head coach for a longer period of time. So by answering those questions, we got to our own conclusion, which is we want to look everywhere. So the moment you do that, of course, you've got a ton more candidates outside of the pool of with MLS experience that you can speak to. And at that point, you know that there is some need to support those head coaches without MLS experience with a coaching staff that has MLS experience. We've now been in the league for a couple of years. We have members of our coaching staff that have been in the MLS way before being with St. Louis City. And we are surrounding, of course, Olof with those people that can help.
And could you just explain to me, hiring a coach for the medium and the long term, can you just contextualize that against hiring for the short term?
Yeah, I think when one is looking for short-term results, the criteria may be different. You see it a lot in Europe, especially when you've got teams that are facing the threat of a relegation. Now, at that point, you're not looking for a long-term coach that's going to build for 2-3 years. You're looking for some immediate results. And immediate results can come with things like, I will sacrifice man management or personal fit or style of play for results. We don't want to do that. We want to think more medium to long term and build something that can serve not for a 5, 6, 10 game stretch to get some immediate results, but rather something that can help us build a foundation the right way, which is what our owners want. They don't want short-term success. They want long-term sustainable success.
Okay. So let's talk about, from a fan's perspective, with a new coach, have the goals and expectations shifted for this coming season?
I don't think the goals will shift with a new coach. I do think the goals from this club have been clear from the very beginning. The goal is to be an exceptional club and neighbor.
Yep.
The ultimate goal of this club is to support St. Louis, the city, the region, the community, and to help strengthen and revitalize downtown where we are now. There's so many things that the club is doing and has done already that shows that that is its ultimate goal. But we also know that a very strong way to be able to achieve that is by being an exceptional club also. And that means winning trophies one day. So that hasn't changed and won't change. That is what we want long-term in this club. Our owners, our staff, our players, our fans, our city, everyone wants that. So signing a new manager doesn't change that. I do think that signing a new manager, of course, means that you need to be prepared that will take some time to adapt also. And we're prepared for that and we're ready.
So that does take me on to the next topic. Will the fans see an evolution on the pitch? Because when John came in, there were some slight tweaks, some different players that came in. Will Olof push the boundaries of how we play again? Should fans expect to see something like that?
Yeah, I think we should expect to see some change in the way we play, but also see some things that are identifiably St. Louis City. Every head coach will come with his own kind of principle of play, and I do think it is important for us to find head coaches that in the principles of play are aligned with our principles of play. But then there are many ways in which we need to give those head coaches the flexibility to adapt around that. Tactically, players, of course, different movements on and off the ball, as long as some of the things about our identity, like the intensity that we want to play football in, the pressure that we want to put the opponents in, how much of a support and we want to have in our stadium here, those things won't change. And the head coach will come with his own ideas of how to maintain that identity, but bring in some innovations.
And how do you balance ambition, the ambition of the fans, and how long it takes to get there? Like the process, the famous trust the process story.
This is hard, Pete. You and I are fans also. We don't just work at the club, we're fans, and we know fans want success and they want it quickly. That's the nature of every fan in every sport. So I think we're aware of that. At the same time, we aren't just a fan. We are also people that are making decisions for this club. And in the same way that one can be fooled into the wrong decisions if looking at the short term, we also need to look at that. Sorry, I was mentioning in terms of the head coach decision. One also has to think that way when it comes to running the club. So we are here to take decisions for the long run, not for short-term success. That is not always easy from a fan perspective. I get that they want short-term success, but this is the way to build sustainability in any sports organization. And that's how we're going to aim to build this. I would also say, there are some very unique things about MLS from the perspective of wanting to win and wanting to win now. You know that in most other football leagues or soccer leagues around the world, there is much less competitive parity than there is here in the MLS. Yeah. So this league is designed to be hard to win. It's designed that way. There's rules around it that make it difficult for there to be 3, 4, 5 teams that will always be in the top 4 positions. And that's by design, right? So even if one were to say, I want to win and I want to win now, year one, it's extremely difficult to do, both because of the rules, but also because of the number of teams. There are 30 teams in the MLS. Very few leagues around the world have 30 teams. Most have 20, maybe 18. So you're competing on a pretty even level with another 29 teams that many of them will start the season saying, we want to win, right? So we need to understand that and, of course, look for the ways to get advantages within that model. It's about taking the right decisions, having the right people in the roles, using data as much as you can, taking decisions for the long term. All of those things are how we're trying to build this club.
That is a really interesting point that you raised there. In Europe, Serie A, Premier League, there is a correlation between spend and final position in the league. That doesn't exist in the same way in MLS, right? And sometimes it can be the team that spends the most finishes at the bottom. It's crazy. What's the reason for that? Big question. Sorry, but
yeah, no, it is a really interesting topic. I've worked across so many leagues before, and that sense of a correlation between spend and position exists everywhere except for here. It doesn't exist here. In fact, sometimes the correlation has even been 0. So there's just no predictive power between what you spend and your ability to say how you're going to finish the league. And actually, another way to look at it would be, if you look at the last 10 seasons in the MLS, there have been 8 different winners in the last 10 seasons. Like that you don't find in most other leagues. You find more repetition. I think it was only Seattle and Columbus that have won twice in those 10 years. Every other year, there's been a different team.
That's mad. Big question that the supporters are going to be asking this year. One of the joys towards the end of last season was the rebuild of the attack. Hartel, Teuscher, Betcher coming into the club and really making an impact and bringing a bit of excitement, a bit of control in the final third. Do you expect to see those guys kick on again this season? Is that a flash in the pan, or are we expecting more of the same this year?
We hope so. I mean, it was actually impressive how quickly they adapted and how quickly they were able to deliver results on the pitch. It was amazing to see, both in terms of goals and in terms of assists, they all played a really important role last year. And we are very excited to basically have done the adaptation phase for them in that super productive 4 or 5 months. So that needs to then translate into the second year. We hope that we'll be able to continue to build on that.
I have a confession. I'm a transfer fiend. I love transfer stories. I thought that I would grow up when I worked at a soccer club, but I'm just as bad, sniffing around trying to find out what's going on behind the scenes. You are at the heart of all those conversations. I would love to hear your take on the transfer strategy. I mean, maybe over the last 6 months, what is the club trying to achieve through the transfers? And can you tell us a little bit about some of the new additions and some of the exits that we've had recently and how that will impact the team going forward?
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. I mean, I would say when it comes to transfer business, I work very, very closely with Lutz. Lutz leads on all the technical parts of these decisions. So he's the ex-player, ex-scout, knows the sport of soccer and the technical skills that we need for whether a player fits or not for what we want in terms of game model and all that. So I depend very, very highly on Lutz's technical expertise on that area. But I do work very closely with him and, of course, with Carolyn on setting a strategy and then making sure that the signings that we find fit in with that strategy. And this really boils down a lot to an exercise called the squad planning process. That squad planning process is done, of course, ahead of every transfer window, but every once in a while you also do a squad planning process looking a little bit further out. And that's as simple as, you can picture the typical boards with the names of players by position.
Yeah.
You've got your squad there. You look at when their contracts are each out. You look at the performance of all of those individuals. You look at some of the strengths and weaknesses as a team in the past. And that helps, especially Lutz, identify from a football perspective or from a soccer perspective, what are our gaps and where do we want to improve? That's where it starts, right? So that starts with Lutz and, of course, the head coach at the time to together come up with a plan of where do we need to strengthen. then it comes back to like, what can we do to strengthen these positions? We've got a lot of rules. We've got obviously a budget and an amount of money that we want to or can spend, and we need to go into all that discussion. And then we say, all right, we are approving this squad planning and this transfer window plan. Now let's go out and find the players. Goes back into Lutz and the scouting perspective to identify players, and then we go into a negotiation and hopefully trying to close those.
And what should fans be excited about? The players that have come in, you know, we've got younger players, more experienced players. Like, tell me a bit about some of the players. I know you can't say who your favorite is because that would be unfair, but you can give us a little hint about what you're excited about.
I mean, I'm very excited about the players that arrived mid-season last year and their ability to continue that amazing tendency. I'm also very excited about the players that we had from the beginning that have always been able to contribute significantly. Players like, of course, Roman Berkey, Edu Leuven, even players like Klaus that just had lots of time away from the pitch last year while injured, and having him back fresh at the beginning of the year. And I'm also excited about the new players that we brought in. We brought in Konrad Wallem, we brought in Timo Baumgartel, and those players are here to improve our team, improve us defensively, improve us offensively, give the manager more options tactically. So I'm really, really excited to see how all that comes together under a new coach with a slightly different version of, how we are going to achieve the identity of play and the wins on the pitch. I want to see how that plays out.
Simon Betcher arrived, and I don't think anybody was expecting him to bang quite like he did, but he's been really exciting to watch. I think fans are falling in love with his style of play, the fact that he's always on the end of crosses in the box. He's had a good preseason so far, but he's on loan, and that loan runs out in June. Can you give us a hint, like what's going on there? What's going to happen with Simon?
I mean, I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to think about what we've seen so far, and if the decision was here today, what we would do. He has done an amazing job in the last several months, both on the pitch and off the pitch. Has been a great addition to the team. He's not only produced in terms of being selected to play and giving it all on the pitch, but he's also contributed to goals and assists. As you said, just last preseason game, he scored a brace, only playing the second half. So his performance on the pitch has been great, and we're very, very happy with Simon. We also love the fact that he's got a real, genuine connection with St. Louis. No, he played soccer here in St. Louis University. He was born in Kansas, not far from here, so he feels at home in St. Louis. So fast forward to 6 months from now, I'm really hopeful that he'll be able to continue here, continue developing. He is young, so we hope we can continue growing together.
I've only been living here 4 years, but it's crazy when I see a player go on the pitch, I'm like, that's a player St. Louis City fans are going to like. You can feel it. There's a raw ingredient, something about the way that they play, and Simon's definitely one of those guys. We lost some big personalities, some players that had been with us from the very start, but then we brought in some big personalities. I'm thinking about Timo and, hearing all the things about him and how he is in the dressing room. You've been in Coachella. You've been up close and personal with the players. How does it look like everybody's settling in? Do you feel like the dressing room is a little bit different from when you started now? Do you notice those things on a year-by-year basis?
I mean, I would say the most important thing I've noticed is players have a desire to start the season again and prove themselves. All of them feel that last year was a disappointment. All of them feel that the offseason was long. And now they're excited to start with a blank sheet of paper and be able to go back, show up at Energizer Park and surprise our fans, go back to winning ways and have a great season. You can tell that independently of pressures from the club or from the head coach or from media or from fans, players, these are elite athletes. They have their own pressures. They're not happy with having a good season. So what they want to do is they want to go back on the pitch as soon as possible and sort of erase the past. That's what they're dying to do. So just a few more days to go and we'll be able to see them there.
That's great to hear. Olaf has been in the system for a little bit. He started in January. Is there any chance that the club might bring some people in? Is business over? Is business still open? The transfer window in MLS goes on until like April 23rd or something like that. Is there an opportunity to make any movement? Are you ruling anything out? What's going on?
I mean, I think for sure the majority of our work is done, unless something unexpected happens.
Yeah.
The window is still open until, I believe, April. It opens until way after the league starts. which is a bit unusual and a bit difficult even. But I'd say most of our work is done, unless some surprise happens that we haven't planned for. That is not to say all of our work is done. We are still in the market, looking at a few positions and a few options, but we also know that it's not a good market to sign a player in February,
right?
Usually, right? Because that means that almost all the other leagues have their transfer window closed. So suppose you do find a player that you want and you want to get him out, that becomes a really difficult thing for the team that is letting that player go, because you can't replace that player. So that means that prices go up and you're essentially overpaying for talent. This is one of the things that gets discussed when we talk about converting into a FIFA calendar and having the league start in the summer. That summer window is the most common window for transfers in and out. So as we're looking at our squad now, we're very happy with what we've got. We could still do something in this window, but we could wait and do something in the longer and more important window in the summer.
Am I allowed to ask you a question about the FIFA calendar and some of the rumors that have been going around about it? Like, is there a club position on switching out calendars? Is it a real opportunity? We've read about it. What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I am super excited by all the things that MLS and all the clubs are discussing as options.
Yeah.
I'm excited because everyone knows that with 2026 World Cup coming here, that is a moment in time where there's an opportunity for so many people that today aren't engaged or aren't even as engaged in the sport of soccer to become a lot more engaged. And we can't just be passengers in that and just let it happen. We need to be actively thinking about what can we do to really take advantage of this moment in time as much as we can to grow the popularity of the league and these clubs. So I love the fact that the MLS is thinking about all sorts of things, including changing the calendar, changing the competition, so many things that are on the table. They're taking it very, very seriously, doing a very diligent work, taking their time. It is very difficult to get 30 clubs to agree on anything, even 30 people to agree on anything. So you can imagine, especially with some of these things that are big decisions, it takes time. But they're doing a great job, and we're being led by them, and hopefully we'll come to some conclusions during this year.
City 2 had a strong year last year. Some very exciting players, bringing a lot of pride to the city and those in the stadium. And will there be opportunities in the first team for those players? What's Olaf's thoughts on the production line that's going on at City at the moment? Is he thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, Olaf came from a club in Sweden that is, I believe, the club with the largest academy in the world. Academy means the number of youth teams and youth players in their system. So they survive by developing talent, young talent that goes and gets a shot in their first team. So he comes with that, and he's trained there for 5 years, and he believes in that, and he's worked in those environments. He's taken young players and made them better. So that is one of the reasons that we also decided to sign him, and we're sure that he's going to be able to play a role with that. I would also say, last year we had a lot of City 2 players playing for the first team. Some of that was because we also had a lot of injuries last year. So I would hope that we have fewer injuries than last year. That may make it harder for some of those City 2 players to get minutes. But we need to be able to compete also as a first team and achieve our results of qualifying for playoffs.
Let's talk about the supporters. Last year, City Park for MLS games was packed every single game. Our supporters, I think they're the loudest in MLS. I don't care. I've heard opposition players say this is the loudest stadium in MLS. Literally overheard them. Shouldn't have been eavesdropping, but I was. What's your message to them this year?
I mean, look, I've been to, I think it's close to 20 of the MLS stadiums now. And, I can tell you, obviously I'm a little biased, but even trying to remove the bias, I don't think there's any better stadium experience in the MLS than here at Energizer Park. The fact that it's full for every game, the fact that the fans are there contributing with colors and songs and sound, that helps. The food partners people love and they come in early. There's so many things about the experience that feels like a European or Latin American experience where people care, they're standing, they're supporting their team, they're not getting up for food and beverage during the game, and all those things make it an amazing experience. And I love the fact that our fans are really driving that because one as a club can do everything one can to try to invite that to happen. But at the end of the day, it either then happens or not. And fans have been instrumental in that, especially our supporter groups who dedicate so much love and so much passion to this team. They've got full-time jobs. No one gets paid to do what they do. And they are super organized. They care about the team. They care about the players. And they put in so much effort in bringing that vibrancy to the supporter section, which then just gets the entire stadium up and alive. No? So all I can say is, obviously, thanks to all of those fans that come and make that unique. It really does matter for the team. It matters for the players, and it contributes to winning.
Do you think it's St. Louis City SC superpower to have fans that noisy? Like when you're looking to sign players, is that something that they'll look up and pay attention to? Is it important to play in front of a packed stadium? For sure
it is. It matters. It helps them, and they also feel that the city cares more if they've got a full stadium. I won't say the name, but we've even had some players that were here that left that I've said, man, I missed that experience at then City Park, now Energizer Park. They miss it because, you do go out there and you see how much people care.
Seasons go up and down in MLS. How big a role do fans and supporters play, particularly in the bad times? Because it inevitably happens through any season. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Arsenal, Barcelona, AC Milan. Every team has their down periods. How important is it to have fans making noise like they do in the down periods?
I think last year will definitely go down as a year of a lot of growth and a lot of learnings. I know it's not easy to see that when one is stuck in the moment, but when one zooms out and looks at our life as a club over 5-10 years, there will have been a really important role for last season. I also think about it from the perspective of the fans. Supporting a team when things are great is, I'm going to say, easy. Obviously, everyone wants to be on board when the team is winning. And that first season was just magical. Entire, not just the entire city and the region, but we had the country and even some international articles written about what is happening in St. Louis. It really was a fairy tale. But that's not the reality of what a team can expect year in, year out. So having a season of difficulties, of challenges, just like in life, just builds another level of human emotional connection. When you go through hard times with a friend or a family member or a partner and come out of that, that has built such a strong bond between those people because you've had this sort of shared experience of suffering. And that does build fandom. There's a ton of examples of clubs that went years without winning anything. And when they did, the amount of celebration and joy that came out because of the bad years is incredible. I remember this book called Fever Pitch. It's a really famous book. It's actually an Arsenal fan that wrote
Fever
it.
Pitch, yeah.
And he talks a lot in the book about those decades in the 70s and 80s. There were a lot of disappointments for Arsenal. And they said that built community, it built togetherness, it built resilience. And then when the good times really did come, and there were a lot of those, Pete, I know, then they were able to enjoy that so much more. So I think last year, hopefully we'll play a little bit of that role of making fans realize that they are there for this team in good years and bad.
My wife bought the Fever Pitch book for herself because somebody said that would help her understand me. So
was that before you got married?
No, that was like 3 months ago. So Diego, let's final question. I just want to put this on you because we didn't talk about it before, but I want to ask about your expectations for the season. What does good look like for you come the end of the year? If we're in December having a beer, what would make you feel good about this year?
I would say, first of all, I always start with what is the long-term vision of this club and then draw back to an annual goal. The long-term vision of this club is to impact the community positively and to be an exceptional club. That includes winning. So that is our North Star, and we always need to start any moment of evaluation of results with those pillars of our North Star. Then you draw it back to, okay, what can we aim to achieve this year? This year, on the sporting side, we're very clear that we want to qualify for playoffs. That is what we want to be able to say at the end of the year. And I would like to say that we qualify for playoffs also showing not just the results of getting into playoffs, but also the underlying performances that get us there. I want to see a team that is able to consistently produce expected goals, stronger defensively, a fortress at home, a team that plays together, many different players scoring. It's not just about the results, but also about those underlying things that we will look at and we will evaluate. And then, of course, when I think about the fan side and the community side, I want to be able to look back and say, this stadium was full at every game. I want to be able to look at City 2 and say, wow, we continue to build every year and get more and more people to come and to love the family experience. I love all the things we're doing creatively with music, with art, with fashion. I want to continue trying to push the boundaries there of it being not just a sports team, but actually more of a lifestyle organization that connects with people on multiple levels. And then on the community, I want to continue seeing what we're doing around grassroots soccer, around sustainability. There's so many things that really make us proud at the core. So hopefully, Pete, at the end of the year, we will be sitting down, we'll be having this beer, we'll be talking about all these things, and we'll be saying, check, 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 and we'll be able to toast and celebrate to a good 2025.
I love that. I got an uncle who's a Leeds fan, and he boiled football down into a very simple equation. He's like, if you have a lot of good parties during a season, that's a good season. That's all you want. And I feel like when we're rocking, it's good parties at Energizer Park. So I love that. I'm feeling very motivated. So final part. It's your message to the supporters, to the fans, to the people that are here in the room. And thank you to everybody that's come down to listen. We appreciate you. Round of applause to you.
I loved your big party. So let's hope that we have a 2025 of a lot of parties. The fans bring the parties. Keep on coming to Energizer Park. Bring a friend. Tell everyone about the amazing experience. First home game is just in a few days. We've got Open Cup coming up. As I mentioned, we care about it. We really want to go far. So fans, you guys are the lifeblood of this organization. We hope you continue showing up and enjoying your time at Energizer Park and with this team, and we can make St. Louis hopefully very proud.
That's awesome. Okay, that takes us to the end of our podcast with Diego. I watch a lot of content all over the world. I love football content. Not many people get access to their club president to sit in an environment like this. So I feel very blessed that we get to talk to you and you get to share all the secrets that are going on at the club at the moment. I want to thank all the fans that are in this room at the moment. This is our first ever City Voice podcast live on the road. So thank you to all of you. And if you didn't come down and you're listening to this in your car, actually not in your car, if you're in your office, not driving, give us a little 5-star review, leave a nice comment. They help us with the algorithm. So on that note, I'll say ciao for now. Ciao for now, everybody.
Thanks, Pete.